Best narrative. For outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game. A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Immortality. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things shouldn't be here. And it's Elden Ring. Elden Ring has a narrative. Elden Ring has a lot of story behind it. Elden Ring does not have a great narrative. And there's a difference between having good narrative and having a lot of lore. Like, there is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
I do think this one is the most story forward version of this game, of these games.
Agreed.
I think there's little moments with characters that are interesting. But I think it's so easy to miss this shit.
Well, I guess my question, for me, it's the difference between Lord of the Rings, the movies, and Lord of the Rings, the books. The books of the Lord of the Rings are good books. That's indisputable, right? But they're not great narratives because there's just a lot of shit in them that doesn't add to the narrative, that add, like, the overall, like, moment to moment, here is what happens. And they, in the movies, they really like tightened up the narrative elements of that. Of the Lord of the Rings, right? Elden Ring is a great game by all accounts. Like that's not in dispute. But I think it having a great narrative, I would just disagree with, because it's not like it just doesn't tell a very solid, like, A to B story, which isn't bad, but I just don't think that makes it a good narrative.
All right, question: what is a better narrative, the Medium or Elden Ring?
Narrative?
Yeah.
Fuck, it's the Medium.
Yay!
It's not a better.
I did it!
It's not
You
a better
chose
game.
The Medium. Yes.
But let me say this: like, I know it's a semantic choice, but the Elden Ring has a better story than the Medium.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's a semantic thing, but the story of Elden Ring is way better than the Medium. It's just that the actual narrative of, like, here is what happened in the video game. I understand exactly what happened in the Medium. I get kind of what happened in Elden Ring.
Okay, so this is one like, I think there's a huge category game missing in this one.
Yeah, what's that?
Fucking Xenoblade.
Xenoblade, right? Like, just swap Xenoblade with Elden Ring and
Like, I would say with any of these, like, like, I really think, like, that game, that story is one of the, like, the amount of story given into you in that game, and the amount of, like the amount of, literally the amount of things and characters and all this stuff, and I never felt like I was lost. And I think in the other Xenoblades, I often felt like I was confused and lost at times. This one, it was very, like, a very clear story, very complex, simple idea, but how they just expand it, it was so awesome. I think that this is one of the biggest omissions of this, is the missing this for the narrative of it.
Agreed.
But yeah, I think looking at all these games, I think you can make an argument for immortality. I think you can talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but I think looking at these, God of War Ragnarok, I think I have problems with some of it, but it still has that ultimate story that keeps me going about Atreus, Kratos, and Odin. And I think that is the most interesting through line out of all of these to me. And I think God of War is going to win that. And I think when a lot of people look at God of War, they look at how they develop all of their characters through dialogue and how many characters are in this game. And so far, most of these characters that you get to meet really have really interesting stories. And the story comes from them talking with each other through like moments. And like, there's so much of it that even if not everything works or some of the pacing is quick, it's there and it's thought of, and there are dramatic arcs to all their little stories, and everything seems to connect in a certain way. I think it's done really well. So I say God of War for both.
I'm also going to say God of War for both. Immortality, I think, is probably a good pick. But I think your take on the narrative of Immortality is going to be largely dependent on how well, like, the RNG of the game, which is a little frustrating, right? Like, I was really, really into what was happening with it. And then I got an achievement and then apparently I clicked on, like, one of the things that brings you to the very end, and I got an achievement that said you beat the game. And I was like, did I?
Okay.
Nice. If you say so, you know. So, like, you know, and I think people could take this out of context and say, like, oh, so Immortality has a narrative, but Elden Ring doesn't. And it's like, no, like the idea of Immortality is understanding the narrative and understanding what the hell happened with this. That's not what Elden Ring is.
No.
Elden Ring just has a bunch of text in documents, or not documents, but in like item descriptions and in lore books and whatever, and that's fine. But the idea of immortality is understanding the narrative of what happened to this woman and where did she go and all that sort of stuff. But I think that your mileage is going to vary depending on that.
Yep.
So
yep.
But because of that, I think that God of War. It's also, I think, just the pick that I think more people played, and I think that's unfortunate. But it also just tells a much more direct story, you know.
Yeah.
So,
and I think
yeah.
speaking to Plague Tale, I think there's some good moments in Plague Tale. I haven't beat it, so I don't know where it goes in the long run. But I do think a lot of it is more straightforward, and it's not as developed as God of War is. And I think God of War just does. I hate to say it, but it is like the AAA-est of AAA games.
I feel like it's hard to give, like, I feel like I always feel bad when I'm like, oh, God of War, because it had the most money and funding that allowed them to like hire the best people, and but also like that happened to allow them to make the best game.
Yeah, go figure.